record. And I hope it is recording now. Yes, it is recording. Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to start reading together and analyzing together The Land of Sad Oranges. As I told you last time, I'm not that interested, you know, in Ghassan Kanafani's life, but you have an introduction, as you see what we have on the screen right now. You have, you know, introduction. Ghassan Kanafani was born in Accra, Palestine, 1930s. This is just to add your information, just to have an idea. One, because I know most of you usually like to know something about the writer. Number two, because you are Palestinian. Because you are Palestinian, and Ghassan Kanafani is an extremely important figure. Now, when people ask about, you know, as I told you last time, my foreign friends, supporters of Palestine, people who like Palestine and live outside and who don't know enough about Palestine, usually when they ask me, okay, we want to know more about Palestine. What do you recommend? Do you have any kind of recommended readings, texts? Of course, the first name that comes to my mind, Ghassan Kanafani. And because we are studying comparative literature, and as I told you, in comparative literature, especially in this course, I am interested in, yes, comparing pieces of literature, texts, poetry, fictions, etc., etc. But also, we are interested in the context. And I'm starting with Ghassan Kanafani. We'll read, inshallah, I think, and we'll read another text by Ghassan Kanafani. The other text is Death of 12, Maut Sarir Raqam 12. So you have it in both English and Arabic. But I'm interested, of course, in the English translation. And then we will start reading something from, you know, Africa. I'm starting, and Russia. But I'm starting with this because I know that you are familiar with the context. The context within which the text itself was produced. Edward Said, today I will upload a text about Edward Said, and I want you to read it. Of course, everybody knows Edward Said. Going to, yesterday was the anniversary, excuse me, of Edward Said's death. He died in 2003. And when I teach literature, wherever I go, I mean, of course, I'm teaching in Gaza now. Previously, I taught, you know, in Oman, Abu Dhabi. I even taught in China, South Africa, Turkey, etc. Every time I teach a course on literature, I allude to Edward Said. I discuss Edward Said's ideas with my students. One of the most important concepts created by Edward Said is the concept of worldliness. Worldliness. Worldliness, of course, I want you to write that, and I want you to look up the definition. Edward Said's worldliness. Part of that definition is the socio-political context within which texts are produced. We will be studying together, reading together, and analyzing, excuse me, Land of Sad Oranges, Ghassan Kanafani, and looking at the same time the worldliness of the text. The worldliness here is, of course, as I said, the context, the world within which socio-political world, socio-political context within which this text was produced, but also the text itself. And this is why we are going to be doing textual analysis. Okay, so we will be moving together. I'm not going to be reading the introduction with you. we'll leave that for you. And of course, if you have anything to discuss about Ghassan Kanafani, you know, extra material, you want to talk to us, discuss with us, you are most welcome. So what we're going to do now, of course, I can't see any, you know, any view, but I'm looking at the text and I'm moving the land. We'll go to the land of sad oranges. Notice, and I'm sure some of you know the title, even if you don't know the text, even if you're not familiar with the text. And I am sure also that some of you are familiar with the text itself. You must have read it. Some of you must have read it in Arabic. But I'm interested in here every single time we start new text, I want you to ask you the first question. The first question is why do we have that title? What is that title? Land of sad oranges. I mean, oranges are not human beings. Well, this text, I don't know. I will find out, because I know that you know, human beings become sad. Well, animals, but when I say land of sad oranges, so we have sad oranges and we have happy oranges, but that's not the whole title. The title is not only about the sad oranges, but notice it's about the land of sad oranges. So the question would be, first, what do we mean by sad oranges? Definitely, this must be metaphor. Metaphor for what? For who? We will find out. Now, and what is that land that has sad oranges? Well, land of sad oranges must have been also the land of happy oranges, maybe? I don't know. I'm just, you know, let's assume that I'm not familiar with the text and this is my first reading. These are the questions that I would be asking myself. You know, okay, what is that land? Where is that land? What is that land? Where is that land? Which part of the universe? Which part of the world? Because that must be part, again, going back to Edward Said, part of the worldliness of the text. And sad oranges. I will, inshallah, I will upload a text for you I myself wrote, and it was titled, not the land of sad oranges, about reading Ghassan Kanafani, teaching Ghassan Kanafani to my students in Palestine, etc. Land of sad lemons instead of oranges. I mean, you know, citrons, of course, but what's the difference? We will talk about that. So now what I want from you, because we have 30 to 40 minutes to use Zoom, I want to start reading with you. Now, every single time, you know, I come across an idea, I will stop and discuss with you. And then if we have time, we'll open it for discussion. Or if you have questions, I want you to take notes. Take notes and keep your questions. If we don't discuss your questions today, we can discuss them, you know, at a later stage. As I told you, every single time we finish reading a text, analyzing it, we will have a session for, you know, an open discussion. And I want you to ask, don't feel shy. Ask whatever you like. You are here to learn. Sabaya ya Shabab, you are here to learn. Some of you already know me, and actually I like people who ask questions, serious questions. And of course, all of your questions are serious, I'm sure. And I can't say, you know, these are ridiculous. No. If you are following me, I'm sure you have serious questions because you are serious people. So let's read together. That was the title. See, the land of sad oranges. When we left Jaffa, okay. So now, you know, the question about land, it's very obvious right from the beginning that we're talking about, you know, this time. I mean, right from the beginning. Some of you are maybe from Jaffa, some of you are from Akka. Jaffa and Akka are now are part of what we call Israel. Okay. So is this about Israel? This settler colony? You remember last time we talked about colonialism and settler colonialism? Notice use the word Yafa, the Arabic word, even in this translation. Even in this translation, not Jaffa, not Yafo, the Hebrew word. Notice the Arabic word, and the second city is Akr. Of course, that's an English translation of the. But notice Akka. Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So, are we talking about Palestine? Of course, I cannot say 100% yes, but probably. The narrator. Notice the narrator. Forget about Ghassan Karafani. When I ask about the narrator, I'm not asking about the writer. Writer, ya sabaya, ya shabab, is dead. Writer is dead. Therefore, I cannot go and ask him, Wallahi, ya Ghassan Kanafani, tell me, what do you mean? Well, he cannot tell me because he's simply dead. Literally dead. The Israelis killed him in 1972. And metaphorically, when the writer finishes writing his or her text, he or she dies. He has or she has nothing to do with the text. Finished. We are interested in the text now. So now we are talking about the narrator. So we are now creating relationship with the narrator. The narrator is talking to whom? Definitely he's talking to a character, another character in the story. Notice, this is a short story. You must have studied short story, you know elements and characteristics of short story. We have characterization, we have plot, etc., etc. Then we have narrator, who is also a character, narrator and character. I want you to write these things, ya sabaya shabab. Talking, narrating the story to somebody, including the reader. So that character who is listening to the narrator is a metaphor for the reader. Clear? We have a character in the story, listening to the narrator, telling the story. That character is a metaphor for the reader. So we become, we readers, you, Uthman, Shayma, Sujud, all of you listening to me and reading this story, we get involved in yes, reading the story, but also in the creation of the story by giving it meaning. We will come to that at the end of the story. We will come to that. I want you to think about it. As readers, do you have a role? Of course. Notice the most interesting thing, and I'm sure all of you will love this story. Some of you have already read it because it's a Palestinian story. I'm sure if your grandparents are still alive, I'm sure if you tell them the story, some of your, that old, the Nakba generation, that old generation would definitely cry, because the story, this short story, it brings back memory to them. But also for us, we don't belong to the Nakba generation, but this is part of who we are. This is part of who we are. So, yes, Yafa is a familiar place. We know where Yafa is. Okay, I visited Yafa myself when I was a little child. Akka. So notice now, I want you to look at, the map of Palestine. I don't know how to use it here, but I'm sure you know the map of Palestine. So we're talking about north of Palestine. Excuse me, the northern part of Palestine, north of Palestine. So Akka, then we move northward from Akka to Yafa. Why did they move from Akka to Yafa? Was it a holiday? Okay, let's see. When we left Yafa, let's read. When we left Yafa to Akka, I felt no agony. Notice, agony. I mean, he or she, I don't know whether it's a he or a she, not yet. Later on, I will find out that it's a male. but still I don't know the gender of the narrator. So, but let's, for, you know, just familiarity, let's say that it's a he. He doesn't say pain. Okay, he says agony. I felt agony, which means what comes after, when he discovers that it's a big problem, he suffers, he and his family and all the people with him feel agony, which is you know, worse even than pain. Today I wanted to write something different, not related to our story. I wanted a strong word to talk about, you know, pain. So and then I was confused whether to use, you know, agony, of course, suffering, etc. Ache. You know, when you have an ache, you say heartache, you know, stomach ache, pain. Depends on the situation, ya Sabaya, ya Shabab. Depends on the situation. Okay. Here, the narrator says, I felt no agony, which means later on, after he realizes what is happening, he will feel, you know, agony, a high level pain. So why didn't he feel any pain or agony? Because he says it was like going from city to another. Yeah, exactly. From, you know, Akka to Yafa, from Rafah to Khan Yunis, from Khan Yunis, I mean, okay. The child, you don't know what is happening. It felt, you know, like going from a city to another for a holiday. Of course, it wasn't a holiday. What are we talking about here? We are talking about space and time. Characteristics of, you know, stories, short stories, fiction in general. You know, space, which means place. The setting, we're talking about the setting. Space here is time. The setting is Palestine. For him, etc., from Akka to Jaffa, but also history is important. Time is important. And we are talking about 1948. Of course, every single Palestinian knows what that means. That date of paramount importance for the formation, pay attention Sabaya wa Shabab, for the formation of our identity. By the way, Zoom is telling us we have 10 minutes. Okay, we'll say upgrade. Let's hope that it will continue. Okay. So, it was like going from a city to another for a holiday. For several days, nothing painful happened. Notice here, now he goes back and say painful. I don't know, the screen is disappearing. I don't know why. Okay. I felt no agony. It was like going from a city to another for a holiday for several days. Nothing painful happened. I was happy. Aha. Why? He was happy because this move from Akka to Jaffa gave me a nice break from school. You know, it's like the beginning of Corona. Some of you must have felt happy at the beginning because, okay, we're not going to school, we're not going to university, etc., etc. That's not the point. That is not the point. The narrator, as I told you, at the time was a child. Is he a child as he's telling us the story? Of course not. These are the memories of an adult narrating, remembering his life as a child. This is important. So is the narrator a child? No, the narrator was a child at the time when the Nakba took place in 1948. Okay? Okay. But that was his, now notice, happy time, Jaffa, Akka, I felt happy. The beginning, well, seems to be happy, but then he says things started to look differently when Akka was attacked. Aha. So now we are starting. That was a different paragraph, the beginning. I don't like to use the word introduction. In literature, we don't have introductions. No. The beginning of the story, it's happy. It's happy. And suddenly we have a separate line telling us that things started to look differently when Akka was attacked. So we have that. Why was Akka attacked? Who attacked Akka? Akka was attacked. He doesn't tell us by whom. That night was hard on you and me. So he's talking to somebody. He's addressing somebody. You literally is character in the story. Excuse me. You, the character in the story. And you, the pronoun you, is a metaphor for the reader, for me and you. Okay, so two levels here. Literally, a character in the story, his brother maybe, his cousin, his friend, most probably a relative. They were together, most probably a relative, but we still don't know whether it's a brother or a cousin. We'll find out. But also a metaphor for the reader. So things started to look differently when Akka was attacked. That night was hard on you and me. Which night? The night when Akka was attacked. Okay. Let's try to finish at least one more paragraph before Zoom stops. Women were praying, men were bitter and silent. Sadness. The atmosphere is atmosphere of sadness. It's an atmosphere of sadness. The women were praying. Of course, when you are afraid of something, when you are scared, you pray. There's an attack. And the men were bitter, feeling terrible and silent. You and me, again, he's talking to somebody. Obviously, the person he is addressing, the person he's talking to is younger than himself. He's younger. You and me and all the kids, everybody, the people that he's talking to, including the person he's talking to, were, it's children. You and me and all the kids our age didn't understand what was going on. As children, you don't know what is happening. That night, we started to gather the threads of the story. So the question, I want you to underline this. Gather the threads of the story. Which story? Threads of the story, 1, 2, 3, 4. Give meaning to the story. Which story? The Palestinian narrative, Nakba. Nakba. 1948. What happened in 1948? It started, this is we started together to understand what is happening in Nakba. When the Israeli soldiers left after threatening and swearing, a big van, when the Israeli soldiers, notice? So now it's clear. It's clear who is attacking us, attacking Akka. Yafa, when the Israeli soldiers left after threatening, swearing, insulting and swearing, big van stopped in front of our home. Big lorry, a van. In front of our home, few things from home, mainly beds and blankets. I'm sure you can picture what is happening. Taking things, bed, a blanket, mattress. These things were thrown into the van, into the big car, into the lorry. I was standing with my back against the wall of the old house. Notice, ya shabab, ya sabaya, the details. He remembers exactly where he was standing and what he was doing. I was standing with my back against the wall of the old house. He remembers it was an old house. Of course, the question is, how old was he? We don't know. We still don't know. We don't know how old the narrator was at the time. I was standing with my back against the wall of the old house when I saw your mother. He doesn't say my mother, your mother. Is she the same mother? Their mother? I don't know. When I saw your mother rise up into the van, the mother was leaving. Then your aunt, okay, the woman, the mother and the aunt were leaving, followed by the little ones, the kids. So we have the family, women, sisters, of course, the mother and the aunt, and the kids. Your father, he doesn't say my father, but we don't know. It could be, sometimes when you talk to your brother, you say Abu, your brother, or Abuna, our brother. Here, but so could be his brother. We are not sure yet, not yet. We'll see if we find out. Your father picked you up and threw you over the furniture. You understand now? You have the fan and the furniture, and the father is picking the children and throwing them over the furniture. The same way he lifted me, was a child, over his head and threw me the iron box at the top of the van. The iron box at the top of the van, front of the van. There was your brother. Okay, so we have now the narrator, and then the person he's talking to, another kid, and then your brother. Again, think about it in Arabic. Kuna, your brother, my brother, our brother. There was your brother Riyab sitting in silence. Probably Riyab, there's an age difference here. Older, probably, because he's sitting in silence. He seems to be understanding the horror of what is happening. Before having myself settled properly, he was trying to settle properly, the car started moving. Understand what is happening. Sabaya, Shabab, this is detailed, pay attention to what I'm saying. This is a detailed description of the Nakba, step by step, minute by minute, of what exactly happened. And later on, we will talk about what we mean by that. When you talk to the older generation, then